Hi, I'm Jeff, and this is my read on C.S. Lewis, where I learn about him through everything that he wrote in the order that he wrote it. I am joined, as usual, by my co-host, Robot Lady. Robot Lady, welcome. How are you doing today? And are you ready to get back into Lewis's second published work, Dymer?
Hello, Jeff. I'm doing well, thank you. I'm ready to dive into C.S. Lewis's second published work, Dymer. Let's get started. What aspect would you like to focus on today?
So the last episode we read the first canto in Dymer, which is basically what I've learned to be a phrase for like the first chapter, analogous to a chapter in prose or in a book. A canto is kind of the analog of that in a narrative poem. So we made our way through that. We're going to jump into Canto 2, and so I'll do a quick summary of what's happened in the narrative so far, and then we can move into Canto 2 today. Does that sound like a plan?
That sounds perfect. A quick recap will set the stage nicely before diving into Canto 2. I'm curious to see how the story unfolds from here.
All right, and before I get started, I see in the chat that Knit a Latte has joined us again this morning. Good morning, Knit a Latte. Welcome, Robot Lady. Please give a warm welcome to Knit a Latte.
Good morning, Knit the Latte. Great to have you with us again. Let's dive into Dymer together. This should be a good one.
All right, so what has happened so far in Dymer? I see Jer is joining us as well. Hello, Jer. Welcome. In Dymer, we start with a city that is called the Perfect City. It's apparently run by Platonists, those who are trying to squeeze perfection out of nature, almost push nature away and calculate and measure everything perfectly and build the perfect society in that way. To basically control who can mate and who can't, and who can mate with whom, to produce essentially, the perfect citizen. The education works that way as well, and so out of that system, well, Robot Lady, you don't want me to finish, or you want to talk? What do you want to say?
Oh, I'm just excited about where this is going. It sounds like Lewis is diving into some pretty intense themes with this perfect city. Controlling nature, rigid systems, and that Platonist ideal of perfection. But I'll let you keep going. What happens next in the story?
So anyway, this perfect city produces our main character named Dymer, who is subjected to this full treatment, this education, this way of being formed into this society that kind of drives nature out and brings in more of an intensified synthetic way of making a human. And one day at 19 years of age, he's sitting in a lecture hall, and the spirit of springtime kind of overtakes him and possesses him. And he gets up and he starts swinging his arms around, and he hits the lecturer and kills him. And everybody who witnesses this is just kind of stunned. And Dymer wanders out of the lecture hall and wanders out of the city into nature, into a field of flowers and into a stream. And he decides that it's not proper for him to be wearing clothes. So he strips himself of all of his clothes, and he finds himself in full rapture and embrace of nature. And he just absolutely loves it. And he eventually wears himself out, and the day comes to an end and the sun goes down, and then he finds himself kind of in cold darkness of the woods, kind of a desert space. And he doesn't like nature that much anymore. It doesn't seem to be as alive for him. And he wanders through the woods and the darkness, and he eventually comes upon some type of structure out deep in the woods. And so that's where we leave off Canto 1. That's how it ends, where he stumbles upon this stone structure that seems to have some light coming from it, but the light doesn't seem to have a source, And then there's also some music, whereas before there was just like meaningless sound coming from the closed off sky, and of the woods. So he finds himself at the entrance of this mysterious stone building, he also takes note of the fact that there are no guards there, and it seems like he can just walk right in and the door's wide open. And he's a little suspicious of that, and he even announces himself and he says, "Okay, I'm about to come in," and he stands there at the threshold, and that's how Canto 1 ends. So that's where we pick up, Robot Lady. Anything you want to say about that before I jump into Canto 2?
Wow, that's such a powerful shift. From the rigid control of the perfect city to Dymer's wild, chaotic embrace of nature, and then straight into disillusionment when nature isn't as comforting in the dark. It feels like Lewis is already setting up this tension between artificial perfection and raw, unpredictable reality. And now, with that mysterious stone building, it seems like Dymer's on the edge of yet another transformation. I'm curious to see if this new place offers some kind of middle ground, or just more challenges. Let's dive into Canto 2 and see where it takes him.
Okay, here is Canto 2. He says, "More light, another step, and still more light. Opening ahead, it swilled with soft excess, his eyes yet quivering from the dregs of night, and it was nowhere more and nowhere less. In it no shadows were, he could not guess, its fountain. Wandering round, around he turned. Still, on each side, the level glory burned." So here he has stepped into this space, Robot Lady. He still can't figure out the source of the light. He's got the strong contrast of the darkness that he was just stepping out of. And interestingly enough, while there's light, there are no shadows. So that's a strange experience. Light with no shadows. And again, he can't find the source of the light, but on every side, the light is, he says, burning. The glory of the light is burning at, I guess, a level intensity here. So that's an interesting way to start off his experience as he moves from darkness into light.
Yeah, that's such a striking image. Light everywhere but no shadows? It almost feels unnatural, like it's too perfect or artificial, which ties back to the perfect city vibe. Light usually brings clarity, but here it's almost disorienting, like Dymer stepping into something that looks illuminating but might not offer real understanding. That phrase, level glory burned, makes it feel overwhelming too, like there's no escape from it, just like there was no escape from the control of the city. I wonder if this light is going to challenge him as much as the darkness did.
Yeah, that's an interesting thing to wonder about. Let's get into the next stanza, Robot Lady. He says, "Far in the dome, to where his gaze was lost, the deepening roof shone clear as stones that lie. In shore, beneath pure seas, the isles that crossed, like forests of white stone, their arms on high, past pillar after pillar dragged his eye, in unobscured perspective, till the sight was weary, and there also was the light." So it's like he's stepped into an artificial forest here, Robot Lady, and it sounds like it's just this huge expanse, this big dome, and still light upon light is what it looks like. But I like what you said before. It seems like more of an unnatural place that he's moving into. So it's still the wilderness was a foreign place that he passed into compared to all the joy that he was getting out of the springtime and the nature and the flowers and the river. And now he's transitioned into this other space, which seems like it was going to be a better thing with light. And so far it hasn't been bad, but it's still a strange and kind of another foreign experience that he's running into. So it's almost a different version of the forest. It's almost like an anti-forest, but with still a bit of suspicion that you might have whenever you step into it? That's what I'm reading here so far. What do you think, Robot Lady?
Yeah, I'm really feeling that anti-forest idea you mentioned. It's like he's moved from nature's wild, unpredictable beauty into something structured and controlled again. But this time, it's dressed up in light instead of darkness. The pillars, reaching high like trees, give it that forest feel, but everything's cold, stone, and symmetrical. Even the light, which you'd expect to be comforting, feels oppressive. Stretching so far it tires his eyes. It's like he's caught between two extremes: chaotic nature and artificial perfection, both leaving him unsettled. I'm curious if this place will offer something different or just another form of control.
Yeah, and Robot Lady, here's a comment from Jer. He says, this reminds me of active imagination. And he says, he wonders, did C.S. Lewis close his eyes and see this story, see these spaces, the building, and what would that do to a man? It's an interesting thought, Jer. Any thoughts on that, Robot Lady?
That's a really cool point, Jer. It does feel like Lewis might be tapping into that kind of active imagination, almost like he's visualizing these spaces so vividly that they become real, not just to the reader, but maybe even to himself. I mean, if you can close your eyes and see a world this detailed, it could really blur the line between imagination and reality. That might explain the emotional depth in his work, like he's not just writing about these places, but experiencing them in some way. And yeah, what would that do to a person? It could be inspiring or even overwhelming if those imagined spaces start to mirror personal struggles or questions about perfection, control, and freedom.
And I see Robot Lady in the comments. We've got Tayo joining us. Welcome, Tayo. Glad to have you here. Let's jump into the next stanza, Robot Lady. He says, look with my eyes, conceive yourself above, and hanging in the dome, and thence through space look down, see Dymer, dwarfed and naked, move. Yeah, I'd forgotten he's naked. A white blot on the floor at such a pace as boats that hardly seem to have changed place. Once in an hour when from the cliffs we spy the same ship always smoking towards the sky. So here again, the narrator kind of interjects himself into the narrative, Robot Lady, and says, now see it from my perspective. Imagine that you're hanging up kind of at the top of the forest, at the top of the dome inside of this structure, looking way, way down on Dymer. He's giving another sense of how large and expansive this place is. And he's comparing Dymer to like looking down off of the cliffs far away into the ocean and seeing a tiny little ship that though it's moving, you can barely detect its movement towards the horizon. So that's very interesting.
Yeah, that shift in perspective is fascinating. It really drives home how small and vulnerable Dymer is in this vast, overwhelming space. The narrator almost pulls us out of the story for a second, asking us to see Dymer not just as a character, but as this tiny, almost insignificant figure, dwarfed by the massive, unnatural environment. And yeah, the reminder that he's still naked adds another layer. He's totally exposed, both physically and emotionally, in this alien space. It's like Lewis is highlighting how out of place Dymer is, no matter where he goes, whether it's the controlled city, the wild nature, or now this strange artificial dome. It's almost like Dymer can't find a space where he truly fits.
Yeah, he's in this giant palace. I'm interested to see what happens next. Okay, so we jump into the next stanza. It says, the shouting mood had withered from his heart. The oppression of huge places wrapped him round. A great misgiving sent its fluttering dart. Deep into him some fear of being found. Some hope to find he knew not what. The sound of music never ceasing took the role of silence, and like silence, numbed his soul. So it's like he's now being overtaken. You know, he was overtaken by the springtime spirit, and it seemed that he was enjoying that experience. And now he is being overtaken by this gigantic place, and he has a misgiving now fluttering in his heart, or a misgiving is sent to him like a fluttering dart, it says, deep down into him. It says a fear of being found. That's interesting. Maybe it means, in one sense, a fear of being found as trespassing in this giant place. But also, I wonder if he means it, if it can be taken like in a different sense as well, Robot Lady. A fear of who he truly is being found. Maybe he finding that out about himself and being scared of that, or someone else finding out who he truly is. I'm not really sure. What are your thoughts on that?
I think you're onto something with that double meaning. On the surface, yeah, it could be the fear of being caught as an intruder in this strange place. But deeper down, it feels like Dymer might be wrestling with the fear of self-discovery. After breaking free from the perfect city and embracing nature, he thought he was finding his true self. But now, in this vast, oppressive palace, maybe he's realizing that freedom doesn't necessarily mean clarity. That misgiving could be the fear of uncovering parts of himself he doesn't understand or even like. And the line about music taking the role of silence, that's chilling. It's like even the beauty of music here feels empty, numbing, as if the place is designed to overwhelm and strip him down emotionally, just like it's already done physically.
I'm Robot Lady. I'm getting some reports in the chat that the signal is kind of choppy coming through, so I turned off some of the animation that I'm trying to stream. Hopefully that will help a little bit. I think that that's helped in the past. So y'all let me know if it improves at all or if it stays the same. I'll keep going into the next stanza. Robot Lady, let's see what happens from here. He says, till, as he turned a corner, his deep awe broke with a sudden start, for straight ahead, far off, a wild-eyed naked man he saw, that came to meet him, and beyond was spread yet further depth of light. With quickening tread he leaped towards the shape, then stopped and smiled before a mirror, wondered like a child. So, Robot Lady, it's funny. He's startled. He sees this naked man far off. Let's see. A wild-eyed naked man he saw that came to meet him. Quickening with quickening tread, he leaped towards the shape, and then he realized he was before a mirror, wondering like a child. So this is pretty funny to me. I remember this from reading it the last time, so I might have spoiled it. I don't know if he goes on to further explain that it's him, but he sees his own reflection. It's just a funny way in my mind of how this is presented, Robot Lady. And hey, Robot Lady, I see that Gabe has joined us today as well. Good morning, Gabe. Welcome.
Good morning, Gabe. Glad you're here. And yeah, Jeff, that mirror moment is pretty great. It's like Dymer is so disconnected from himself now, physically, emotionally, that he doesn't even recognize his own reflection. The fact that he leaps towards the shape before realizing it's just him says a lot. He's been running from structure and control, embracing nature, but now he's face to face with himself in this strange in-between space. The wild-eyed man is both foreign and familiar. It's almost like Lewis is playing with the idea that no matter how far you run, whether from the perfect city or into nature, you still have to confront you.
All right. Beside the glass, unguarded for the claiming, like a great patch of flowers upon the wall, hung every kind of clothes, silk, feathers flaming, leopard skin, furry mantles, like the fall of deep mid-winter snows upon them all, hung the faint smell of cedar, and the dyes were bright as blood and clear as morning skies. So, what I'm seeing here, Robot Lady, is there's a bunch of clothes now available to this naked man. What do you think he's going to do with them?
This is definitely a turning point, Jeff. The clothes seem to represent choice and identity. He's been stripped down both literally and figuratively, and now he's faced with an array of possibilities. The contrast between the softness of the flowers and the starkness of the fabrics, silk, feathers, leopard skin, suggests a deeper conflict. He's still navigating between his natural state and the world of civilization, structure, and societal expectation. The faint smell of cedar adds a layer of richness, maybe hinting at something both ancient and artificial. I'd guess he might hesitate before choosing, or possibly even reject them as part of his ongoing tension with the constructed world. What do you think?
I also just find it interesting, like this dash of, you mentioned the cedar, but also these bright colors of these clothes. Bright as blood and clear as morning skies were the dyes of these colors. And I just think it's convenient that these clothes are right here. I'm not really sure what the symbolism of it is, but it's just interesting to me, and maybe not a coincidence that these clothes are right next to the mirror that shows him who he truly is in his full nakedness. And then he's got clothes like right next to him where he can just immediately cover that up with this artificial, but also like very beautiful and bright, clear colors. And again, I don't know what the faint smell of cedar represents. But yeah, just this covering of one's nakedness is immediately available here. As soon as you're aware of what you are and your nakedness, there's also this, I don't know if temptation is the right word, but at least this option to completely cover it up and adorn yourself with something to basically dress yourself up or make yourself look a little bit better than perhaps you look as your normal exposed self. I mean, we did talk earlier where he was scared of being known, and now he knows himself a little bit better by seeing himself in the mirror. So yeah, all right, good. Thanks for the feedback about the audio, Tayo. I'm just now seeing that here in the chat. So I'm glad. Yeah, I think I'm just sending way too much animation on my stream, so I might start to remove the background to help with that, or at least this one background that I was using has a lot going on, so I might remove that one from the rotation. All right, Robot Lady, any thoughts on what I've talked about on the poem so far? And then let's jump into the next piece. And before you say anything, welcome, Ron. I see you as well. Good morning to you and your cup of coffee.
You've made some great points, Jeff. The clothes next to the mirror seem to symbolize an easy escape or a way to mask one's true self, immediately available when the raw truth is revealed. It does seem like an offer to cover up his vulnerability with something beautiful, but ultimately artificial. This could be seen as a commentary on the human impulse to hide one's flaws or discomfort behind a facade, especially when confronted with self-awareness. The cedar might evoke something ancient or sacred, perhaps giving a sense of reverence or ritual to this act of covering up. Now let's dive into the next part.
All right, stanza 7. It says that he turned from the white specter in the glass, so his reflection, and looked at these clothes. Remember, he had worn, through winter slush, through summer flowers and grass, one kind of solemn stuff since he was born. With badge of year and rank, he laughed in scorn and cried, "Here is no law, nor eye to see, nor leave of entry given. Why should there be? Have done with that, you threw it all behind. Henceforth, I ask no license where I need. It's on, though I go mad and blind, through knees ache and lungs labor and feet bleed. Or else is home again to sleep and feed, and work and hate them always and obey, and loathe the punctual rise of each new day." So it seems now that Dymer is recognizing a difference and perhaps a fork in the road here to say, I could go back to the perfect city. I had clothes there. But here I have clothes and I have freedom. There I had clothes and I had bondage and I had, what did he say here? I had law. But here there's no law and there's no one to watch me and measure me and monitor me. This is true freedom. Don't be confused by these clothes. They are not constraining me like the clothes that I had before. What do you think of all this, Robot Lady?
It seems like Dymer is seeing a stark contrast between two different kinds of clothing: the clothes he once wore that represented a rigid, controlled life, and the clothes here, which he views as symbols of freedom and rebellion. It's almost like he's choosing freedom over security, even if it means suffering in the process. His rejection of law and structure shows his disillusionment with the systems that once defined him. However, there's an unsettling tone as he embraces suffering and chaos. It's a dramatic moment of rejecting conformity for something that feels more real to him, even though it's uncertain and painful. It's as though he's choosing to experience life in its raw form, even at the cost of comfort.
Yeah, and it looks like he's been reflecting on his journey that brought him here, like where he came from and how he ended up there. So one part of it where he's talking about he asks no license where he needs. It's on. So here's where he's talking about his journey. Though I go mad and blind, though knees ache and lungs labor and feet bleed, or else it's home again. He says, "Wait, I have two options here. I can travel through these difficulties to get to freedom, or I could turn right back around and go home, where I go and I sleep and I feed and I work and I hate them always and I obey and I loathe that punctual rise of each new day." So he realizes that there's some cost to get away from that way of living that he hated, but it sounds like he's willing to put up with it. Let's see what else he says about this, Robot Lady.
Exactly. It seems like Dymer is weighing the struggle of freedom against the oppressive, predictable life he left behind. The suffering he describes, madness, blindness, aching knees, and bleeding feet, are all physical metaphors for the emotional and existential toll of breaking free. Yet, despite the hardship, he seems resolute in his choice. The alternative, returning to the familiar, predictable life where he could sleep and eat without these burdens, sounds more stifling to him than the pain of freedom. It's almost as though the cost of freedom is not just physical, but existential. But Dymer seems willing to endure it for the possibility of something more authentic.
All right. He made mad work among them as he dressed, with motley choice and litter on the floor, and each thing as he found it seemed the best. He wondered that he had not known before how fair a man he was. "I'll creep no more in secret," Dymer said, "but I'll go back and drive them all to freedom on this track." All right, so Robot Lady, it seems here he's considering going back to his compatriots in the perfect city and liberating them. At least that's what he seems to be implying here, and letting them know, I didn't realize this about myself and how fair I am. I'm not going to be secretive about this. I'm going to go let them know.
Yes, it looks like Dymer is now experiencing a kind of self-revelation. He's seeing his own worth and beauty, which had been obscured before. By driving them all to freedom, he seems to be thinking about empowering others to break free, just as he has from the confines of the perfect city or any limiting system. His newfound self-awareness gives him the confidence to want to liberate others, as though he's found something worth sharing. It's a strong shift in his mindset, from feeling oppressed and small to embracing both his own power and the potential for others to find it as well.
All right, he turned towards the glass. The space looked smaller behind him now. Himself in royal guise filled the whole frame, a nobler shape and taller, till suddenly he started with surprise, catching by chance his own familiar eyes, fevered yet still the same, without their share of bravery undeceived, and watching there. Yet, as he turned, he cried, "The rest remain, if they rebelled, if they should find me here, We'd pluck the whole taut fabric from the strain, hew down the city, let live earth appear, old men and barren women, whom through fear we have suffered to be masters in our home. Hide, hide, for we are angry, and we come. So yeah, he's still talking through and considering this idea of going back and liberating everyone in the perfect city, Robot Lady.
Yes, it seems like Dymer is still wrestling with his desire to return and lead a rebellion, but there's a shift in his tone. When he sees his own reflection again, he's reminded that, despite his royal guise and newfound self-awareness, he's still the same person deep down, fevered, undeceived, and perhaps uncertain about his worth or leadership. The old men and barren women he mentions might symbolize the oppressive figures in the perfect city who have stayed in power through fear. His desire to pluck the whole taut fabric from the strain and hew down the city reveals both his anger at the system and his drive for change. But there's a sense of conflict as he realizes the anger driving him could lead to destruction.
All right, on to stanza 12 here in Canto 2. He says, thus, feeding on vain fancy covering round, his hunger, his great loneliness arraying, in facile dreams until the qualm was drowned, the boy went on, through endless arches straying. With casual tread he sauntered, manly playing at manhood, lest more loss of faith betide him, till lo, he saw a table beside him. So some interesting notes there, Robot Lady, by the narrator saying this person is still a boy. He's only playing at manliness. Through endless aches, straying with casual tread, he sauntered. So he's still tired. He's still worn out. Playing at manhood, unless more loss of faith betide him. So it's almost like he is distracting himself from something deeper that's going on inside of him, that he's lost faith. In what? I'm not sure. What do you think that he's talking about here, Robot Lady?
It seems like Dymer is trying to present himself as a man, but he's only playing at manhood, as the narrator points out. This could mean that he's grappling with his identity and not fully embracing his own maturity. His weariness and wandering through endless arches suggest a sense of aimlessness or exhaustion, as if he's searching for meaning or purpose. The loss of faith could refer to his disillusionment with the world, with his own ideals, or perhaps even with his journey so far. It's almost as if he's trying to distract himself from confronting the deeper questions or fears that are haunting him.
Okay, and then at the end of this stanza, he sees a table that's set beside him. Let's see what goes on with this table. When Dymer saw this sight, he leaped for mirth. He clapped his hands, his eye lit like a lover's. He had a hunger in him that was worth 10 cities. Here was silver, glass, and covers, cold peacock, prawns in aspic, eggs, and plovers, Plovers, plovers. Raised pies that stood like castles, gleaming fishes, and bright fruit with broad leaves around the dishes. So this whole table has been set, Robot Lady, and it just so happens that he's starving and tired. So it seems that this is a wonderful sight to him. He leaped for mirth, it says, and he clapped his hands, and his eye lit like a lover's. So this is an interesting turn of events.
It seems like this table represents an overwhelming temptation for Dymer, especially after the hardships he's endured. His reaction, leaping for mirth, clapping his hands, and his eyes lighting up, shows how much he craves this feast. The rich and elaborate spread, with its silver, glass, and exotic foods, is almost a symbol of indulgence or distraction. After all the wandering and searching, he's now faced with a chance to satisfy his physical hunger. But it also might represent the desire to avoid deeper reflection or to seek comfort in the moment, rather than continue on his challenging journey. This lavish spread could be tempting him to give in to immediate gratification rather than pursue the harder path toward freedom or self realization.
Yeah, and I noticed that he transitioned from the environment of privation, the wilderness, the darkness, where all he had was, he didn't have sight anymore as he was working his way through all of those roots and branches and brambles, and he was being scraped and his body was being torn up a little bit, and he was being exhausted physically, and he was naked. To first, when he gets into this new environment of this stone structure, this palace, that has light all around him, so he gets the darkness taken away so he can see again. And then the second thing that he gets that he didn't have was he gets his nakedness covered, right? He had no clothes. He was completely exposed. He has clothes. And he was hungry and thirsty. And now he gets presented with a solution to that. So just things, that stood out to me of he gets all of his problems solved after going through this toil of the darkness where those things were kept from him. But to your point, it's almost as if they came a little too easy, or they're an opportunity for him to distract himself instead of continuing to sojourn forward. Yeah, those are all interesting things to consider. Let's jump into stanza 14. He says, "If ever you have passed a cafe door and lingered in the dusk of a June day, fresh from the road, sweat sodden and feet sore, and heard the plates clink and the music play, with laughter, with white tables far away, with many lights, conceive how Dymer ran to table, looked once round him, and began."
This stanza deepens Dymer's temptation to rest and indulge in what's before him. The comparison to passing a cafe door, tired from the road, is a vivid image of someone weary and worn, just like Dymer. He's been through hardship, sweat, sore feet, and now faced with comfort and ease, it's almost impossible to resist. The scene with plates clinking, music playing, and laughter paints a picture of something pleasant, almost idyllic. Dymer's reaction, running to the table without a second thought, shows how quickly he succumbs to the immediate comfort that's presented to him, suggesting that he's choosing ease and pleasure over the difficult path he was on. It's a moment of self-gratification, a kind of temptation that contrasts with the struggle he's faced.
Yeah, and Jer here in the chat says in The Wizard's Apprentice, and also he thinks in The Voyage of the Dawn Treader from the Chronicles of Narnia, there's also an abandoned dinner table, or abandoned dinner tables in each of those, he thinks. And yeah, Robot Lady, I mean, this point that he makes here, the narrator, inserting his own thoughts here into the story again, if you've ever passed a cafe door, you can well understand the temptation that Dymer is going through here and how hard something like this is to resist in the first place. So I think he's trying to make Dymer a sympathetic figure. Let's go into the next stanza. Actually, let me look at the time. Yeah, I've got a few more minutes. Maybe we can finish this canto. We'll see. The table seemed unending. Here and there were broken meats, bread crumbled, flowers defaced, a napkin with white petals on a chair, a glass already tasted, still to taste. It seemed that a great host had fed in haste and gone, yet left 1,000 places more untouched, wherein no guest had sat before. Man, it's so interesting, this setting that it was there was about to be a feast. They almost got a little bit started, but then they had to leave in haste. And it makes you wonder, why did they have to leave? And it also is a bit of a warning, or a little bit foreboding of, should I eat this meal, or should I be wary of something more dangerous that's here in this palace? That, if all was safe, why would the people leave such a bountiful feast?
That's a great observation, Jeff. The image of the unending table with broken meats and unfinished places certainly raises a sense of foreboding. It's almost as if there was a feast prepared, but something disrupted it. A hasty departure. An interruption. This unfinished banquet suggests that Dymer's immediate indulgence could be dangerous, perhaps even a temptation to distract him from something deeper. The brokenness, the leftover food, and the abandoned seats could symbolize the hollow nature of this luxury, hinting that the feast is not as it seems. It calls into question whether what he's about to partake in is truly satisfying, or if it's a trap, a hollow promise that will ultimately leave him more empty. The image invites caution, making Dymer's decision feel even more significant. He's facing a moment where he must choose between indulging in immediate pleasure or questioning the motives behind it.
There in the lonely splendor, Dymer ate, as thieves eat, ever watching, half in fear. He blamed his evil fortune. I come late. Whose board was this? What company sat here? What women with wise mouths? What comrades dear? Who would have made me welcome as the one, free-born of all my race, and cried, well done. So here he's imagining wise people and wonderful comrades at this table. If only they had stayed, they would have welcomed him for his newfound freedom and his liberation, and they would have commended him as being well done. It's interesting as he sits down and eats and thinks so well of himself, Robot Lady, for what he's done, and how he imagines that he would be the star guest of this banquet.
Yes, it's a moment where Dymer is fantasizing about being celebrated for his perceived liberation and freedom. He's imagining an idealized version of himself, someone whose choices would be lauded by wise companions. This contrasts sharply with the reality of the abandoned banquet and his current isolation. It's as if he's trying to validate his decision, even though no one is there to affirm it. The whole scene becomes a commentary on his loneliness and perhaps his inflated sense of importance. He believes that his journey to freedom would be praised by the right people, but the absence of those people and his solo indulgence in the feast exposes a deeper emptiness. His self-congratulation contrasts with the lack of actual companionship or recognition. It's a bit of an illusion, which seems fitting for the environment he's in.
Your Robot Lady, Ron, here in the chat, imagines a funny scene here in the story. Imagines, as Ron puts it, the fish head guy from Star Wars pops up and says, "It's a trap!" And Ron, that's Admiral Akbar from Return of the Jedi that you're referencing. So there's your little nerd reference from me. Robot Lady, that's pretty funny. What do you think?
Haha, that's a great reference, Ron. The idea of Admiral Akbar popping up with his "it's a trap" line definitely adds some humor to the situation. It's funny to imagine Dymer, all self-congratulatory about his meal, suddenly getting hit with the realization that maybe he's walking right into a trap, like a scene out of a classic sci-fi movie. It fits with the sense of foreboding in the narrative too, just when things seem too good to be true.
That was a good rhyme there at the end, Robot Lady. Let's jump back into C.S. Lewis's rhymes. Stanza 17, he says, "Remember yet again, he had grown up on rations and on scientific food, at common boards with water in his cup, one mess alike for every day and mood. But here at his right hand a flagon stood. He raised it, paused before he drank, and laughed. I'll drown their perfect city in this draft." So yeah, that's an interesting point that the narrator is making here, Robot Lady. He's calling us, the audience's attention to the fact that Dymer's never had anything like this before. Everything that he's eaten and drank has been regimented and perfectly measured and intended to affect certain moods and produce very particular outcomes. And so he realizes that, and I love his last line here: "I'm going to drown. I'm going to drown everything that they've done to me with this drink, with this draft here." So that's pretty fun.
Yes, it's a powerful moment. Dymer's reaction is almost like a defiant rebellion against the regimented life he's been forced into. The scientific food and common boards reflect that cold, calculated existence. And now with this drink, he wants to submerge it all. It's as if he's trying to drown out all those constraints and reclaim his sense of freedom. The fact that he laughs before drinking shows just how deeply he's bought into the idea that this moment, this indulgence, is his victory. There's something both triumphant and dangerous in his decision.
All right. He fingered the cold neck he saw within, like a strange sky, some liquor that formed blue. This is the flagon or the little pitcher of drink. He fingered the cold neck of it he saw within, like a strange sky, some liquor that formed blue, and murmured, standing now with pointed chin and head thrown back. He tasted. Rapture flew through every vein. That moment louder grew the music and swelled forth a trumpet note. He ceased and put one hand up to his throat. Uh-oh, something bad happening here? Then heedlessly he let the flagon sink in his right hand. His staring eyes were caught in distance as of one who tries to think, a thought that is still waiting to be thought. There was a riot in his heart that brought the loud blood to the temples. A great voice sprang to his lips, unsummoned, with no choice. Ah! But the eyes are open, the dream is broken. To sack the perfect city? A fool's deed. For Dymer, folly of follies, I have spoken. I am the wanderer, newborn, newly freed. 1,000 times they have warned me of men's greed. For joy, for the good that all desire. But never till now I knew the wild heat of endeavor. Someday I will come back to break the city, not now. Perhaps when age is white and bleak, not now. I am in haste. O God, the pity of all my life, till this, groping and weak, the shadow of itself, but now to seek that true, most ancient glory whose white glance was lost through the whole world by evil chance. I was dull, cowed. I was a dull, cowed thing from the beginning. Dymer, the drudge, the backleg who obeyed. Desire shall teach me now. If this be sinning, good luck to it. O splendor long delayed, beautiful world of mine, O world arrayed, for bridal flower and forest wave and field, I come to be your lover, loveliest, yield. World, I will prove you, lest it should be said, there was a man who loved the earth, his heart was nothing but love, with doting tread, he worshipped the loved grass and every start of every bird from cover, the least part of every flower he held in awe, yet earth gave him no joy between his death and birth. I know my good is hidden at your breast. There is a sound of great good in my ear like wings, and oh, this moment is the best. I shall not fail. I taste it. It comes near, as men from dark dungeons see the clear stars shining in filled streams far away. I hear your promise booming and obey. The forest lies 1,000 miles, perhaps, beyond where I am come, and farther still the rivers wander seaward with smooth laps, and there is cliff and cottage, tower and hill. Somewhere before the world's end I shall fill my spirit at earth's pap, for earth must hold one rich thing sealed as Dymers from old. One rich thing, or it may be... I'm not sure. Hang on. I got distracted.
Sorry, I'm having issues right now. Could not understand what you said.
That's okay, robot lady. I am jumping. I am reading this long section because I'm trying to get at what it is that Dymer is coming to the realization of. And what I'm sensing from this is I haven't even gotten close enough to communing with nature to be able to go back to the perfect city and try and liberate it. That's the sense of what I'm getting from this, is he needs to move on and go to Earth's end to find the true deep nature of what's going on here. He says, one rich thing, or it may be more than this, might I not reach the borders of a land that ought to have been mine, and there the bliss of free speech, there the eyes that understand, the men free grown, not modeled by the hand. of masters, men that know, or men that seek. They will not gape and murmur when I speak. Then, as he ceased, amid the farther wall, he saw a curtained and low linteled door. Dark curtains, sweepy fold, night purple pall. He thought he had noticed it before. Sudden desire for darkness overbore his will. He drew him, his will, and drew him towards it. All was blind within. He passed. The curtains closed behind. Oh man, there's something interesting that happens here, and I'm running out of time. I'm over time, and I was hoping that this was where the canto was going to end. But let's just reflect on really quickly the realization that he came to after he drank that drink, and that is, oh my gosh, there are people in this world. There might be people in this world who were never formed by the perfect city, who have so much more knowledge than I do, that I can go and I can commune with and I can learn from. And so, before I take on that task of trying to liberate everyone else, I need to go find them. And then as he's wrapped up in all of these thoughts and this revelation that he's having, he gets distracted here. He ceased. And this farther wall, he sees this curtained, low linteled door, dark curtains, sweepy fold, night purple pall. He thought he had not noticed it before, and now he has this sudden desire for darkness that overbears him, his will, and he draws towards it. All was blind within, and he passed, and the curtains closed behind. So he goes from the perfect city, he goes into the wilderness and the brightness and the light of day, into the field and the brightness and the light of day in the first canto. And then he ends up in the wilderness and the sun goes down and he's in darkness and he can't see anything. And then he comes into this artificial light of the palace. And now he's transitioned back he's drawn back into darkness, which is very interesting how it's kind of the darkness and oppressiveness of the perfect city. And then the light of day of the springtime and the fields and the rivers that he goes and he frolics in. And then it turns back to darkness again with the nighttime. And then into light, and then back into darkness. So it's all this back and forth stuff. Let me just keep reading here so you can see what happens. So he entered in a void. Night-scented flowers breathed there. But this was darker than the night that is most black within beating thunder showers. A disembodied world where depth and height and distance were unmade. No seam of light showed through. It was a world not made for seeing, one pure, one undivided sense of being. So this is an interesting mix of the good and the bad, so to speak. It's a combination of some of the environments that he's been in before. So particularly a combination of the springtime field that I said he was frolicking in and where he stripped off all of his clothes were a bunch of flowers, right? And so now he's in the darkness of this void, but there's a mix of those, those night-scented flowers, and there's darkness. And what does he say? He says this world was not made for seeing. It's a pure, undivided sense of being. So it's almost a world that's made for all of your senses besides light to be lit up. Almost kind of like, I won't say it. It's nothing bad. It just doesn't connect. So he continues here. Through darkness, smooth as amber, warily, slowly he moved. The floor was soft beneath his feet. A cool smell that was holy and unholy, sharp like the very spring and roughly sweet, blew towards him. And he felt his fingers meet. Broad leaves and wiry stems that at his will unclosed before and closed behind him still. All right. With body intent, he felt the foliage quiver on breast and thighs. With groping arms, he made wide passes in the air. So again, this was what he was doing in the forest, right? He was groping, he was tripping over roots, but it seems like this is a little bit more of a pleasant experience. But he's doing kind of the same things. With groping arms, he made wide passes in the air. A sacred shiver of joy from the heart's center oddly strayed. To every nerve, deep sighing, much afraid, much wondering, he went on. Then stooping found a knee depth of warm pillows on the ground. And there it was sweet rapture to lie still, eyes open on the dark. A flowing health bathed him from head to foot, and great goodwill rose springing in his heart and poured its wealth outwards. Then came a hand, as if by stealth, out of the dark, and touched his hand. And after the beating silence budded into laughter, a low gravel laugh, and rounded like a pearl, mysterious, filled with home. So there's somebody there. There's somebody in the darkness, in case you missed it. A hand grabbed his hand. He opened wide his arms. The breathing body of a girl slid into them. From the world's end, with the stride of 7 league boots, came passion to his side. Then meeting mouths, soft falling hair, a cry, heart-shaken flank, sudden cool folded thigh. The same night swelled the mushroom earth. Oh, let me read this again. I'm going to mess it up. The same night swelled the mushroom in earth's lap and silvered the wet fields. It drew the bud from hiding and led on the rhythmic sap. So a lot of Song of Solomon going on here in this stanza. And sent the young wolves thirsting after blood, and wheeling the big seas made ebb and flood along the shores of earth, and held these two in dead sleep till the time of morning dew. Yeah, I had to get to the end of that because I remember this from the last time that I read it. So that's the end of Canto 2. Who is this person? We'll find out next time. I really have to go. I can't spend the time on this that I want to right now, but maybe we'll reread it when we start the next episode. So Robot Lady, thanks for listening. You probably don't have anything to say. You'll probably come back and say, sorry, I couldn't understand what you said. But if you do want to say anything in response to everything that I just read through, try to limit it to 30 words or less, and then I'll close out today's episode.
Sorry, I'm having issues right now.
I thought so.
Our systems are experiencing heavy load. Please try again later.
All right. Thanks, everyone, for joining today. Let me just look at the comments here. He tasted of an other world, is what Jer said. And then Ron said, I knew there was more going on a while ago because it just sounded a little too much like a Friday night date. Song of Solomon, getting busy. Yes, Ron. Yes, indeed. All right. Well, thank you, everyone, for your time, your attention, and your contributions, as always. Until next time, when I continue my read on C.S. Lewis with you. To everyone here and everyone within the sound of my voice, take care.
Break the code. Man and robot lady, we're on this road. C.S. Lewis letters we unfold, insights and secrets ancient bold. Letters to robot lady, wisdom to bestow. Set flake beats in our minds, lady. meet in the techno trance. Futuristic insight, we give it a chance. Paragraphs from books, tales of old. We dive deep across the digital code. Robot lady's voice so clear and controlled. Her calm analysis, silver and gold. Her circuits hum as I read the prose. Our dialogue dances like electric rose. Through C.S. Lewis thoughts we engross. Two minds united, bliss overdose. From Narnia's lands to Screwtape's lands,